Hi everyone. I want to start by expressing how pleased I am to witness Sanad campaign come to life. I have full faith that this campaign will be a significant step in our journey of supporting prisoners of conscience, and we will hopefully witness positive changes regarding human rights in the UAE. Today I want to discuss the human rights situation from the perspective of a daughter of a detainee. I want to speak for all families of detainees in dissent because I believe that the suffering they endure and the violations they're subjected to is no less than that of those in prison. It just looks different. Unfortunately, when we take a look at the authorities' practices in the UAE, we find that it lacks all means of tolerance and humanity, contrary to what they would claim, and that it's filled with discrimination, harassment, and oppression, especially when it comes to families and relatives of prisoners of conscience, or even the sense abroad. The intolerance and inhumane practices can be endless. The UAE authorities do not stop at repressing and detaining activists for many years and imposing harsh penalties on them after unfair trials. They also extended their oppression to their families as further means to seek revenge and to suppress and silence dissenting voices. The harm that families and relatives of detainees are enduring includes discrimination, continuous surveillance, intermittent questioning, restrictions on education, medical care, scholarships, and employment, banning from traveling, and finally revoking citizenships or refusing to renew IDs and passports. It is estimated that the government has revoked the citizenship of at least 19 relatives of detainees in dissent, barred 22 relatives from renewing their identity documents, banned more than 30 relatives from traveling, and restricted access to jobs and higher educations for many more. And these numbers are always subject to increase. I will use my family as an example of how families and relatives of detainees are targeted in the UAE. Since the year my father was arrested, we have been subjected to arbitrary and indiscriminate harassment, violating our basic rights to citizenship, work, education, freedom of speech, movement, and privacy by state security apparatus. I want to start with the harshest method of punishment, which is revoking citizenships. I think it's the harshest because there isn't much difference between someone who's in prison and living without any legal document. This means that you are automatically deprived from all your rights. In addition, you are unable to appeal this decision because it has no legal basis and you're not provided with any legal decree. For example, we were informed that our citizenship was revoked through a phone call, and we were not provided with any explanation or legal basis to this decision, leaving my family and I stateless and depriving us of basic national and human rights. The UAE uses citizenship revocation as a tool to punish activists and critics of the government. In instances in which the government has revoked a man's citizenship, like in the case of my father, the UAE's nationality law allows for the subsequent revocation of the citizenship of his wife and children, meaning us. While the law requires publishing the decree withdrawing citizenship in the official newspapers, we never managed to obtain a copy of the decree, or we never saw the decision published in the official newspapers, which makes it difficult to appeal the decision. Furthermore, this decision affects every aspect of the victims' lives. You can't get university scholarship or a driving license or apply for a job or even much more because you don't have any valid identification. In other cases, families of detainees or dissents are denied access to the same basic rights and services despite their citizenship not being revoked because state security is not granting them approval to renew their passports and their national ID cards. Many families of detainees are unable to renew their IDs and other documents, leaving them effectively trapped in the UAE and struggling to get basic rights and services. Like the consequences of revoking citizenship, authorities are restricting the education, employment, access to healthcare, and other basic rights of victims of these arbitrary practices. Another tool used to target relatives of detainees who usually are not even engaged in any form of political or social activism is banning them from traveling. My sister, who's currently stateless in the UAE, is banned from traveling. She's not getting her basic rights in the UAE and is trapped as she is unable to leave the country to seek another citizenship. Many other people are suffering from this injustice. including elders, children, cousins, and other relatives. Usually what happens is that family members don't get notified of the travel ban, and instead they find out about that at the airport when they had already prepared to leave the country. In addition, the travel bans are informed verbally only, and when someone asks the airport officials who issued the order, they would simply tell them that the order came from the state security apparatus. In addition, none of those affected have had the chance to appeal or challenge these decisions because, again, the travel bans are not court ordered. They're basically arbitrary decisions made by state security apparatus. Now, let's say you're one of the lucky people who can renew and use your passport and you are not banned from traveling. You're still required to complete a state security clearance process to get a job, whether in a public sector or a private sector, or to obtain a trade license. Now, again, if you are a detainee's relative, your access to employment and business opportunities is restrictive and you'll probably end up getting a lower paying private sector job to sustain yourself and your family. Furthermore, you're required to bear the intermittent, intrusive questioning at the hands of state security officials. I still remember the first time I got summoned. I was only 17 years old and the interrogation was very exhausting. I was asked about every detail in my life and the lives of people I know. Since I've moved to the US, occasionally they will call relatives and interrogate them for hours. They try to gather as much information about, my family and I, and then and they would also send messages through these relatives for us to stop advocating and communicating with human rights agencies. The measures taken against relatives of dissidents appear arbitrary and unjustified. None of these restrictions, that I've mentioned has a clear legal basis, and none of the targeted relatives, including myself and my family, have been able to get an official government or judicial document mandating the action, nor have we been able to appeal because we don't have these legal documents that prove these decisions. The UAE authorities not only punishes those who peacefully dissent, but harasses and abuses even those related to them. Through Sanad's campaign, we're looking to shed light not only on prisoners of conscience, but also the suffering that their families and relatives are enduring. We're aiming that our voices get to those who continue to associate themselves with a government that collectively punishes innocent citizens. Thank you all for your time and thank you for listening.